The three life path is in numerology known as the pleasant path, right? The lucky number, and there are always just these upbeat and all of that. And yet I have to say, Hayden, and I will ask your opinion as well. I don't know a three life path or someone with threes heavily in their chart on the planet who doesn't go through a lot of melancholy, a lot of depressive ups and downs, because the threes are the feelers and they're the expressors. And so part of the pathway for the three is to really be in the dregs of the darkness for a while, because that's where they find their material to turn it around and to express their poetry, their art, their whatever. It doesn't come from being comfortable and happy.
Welcome, guys, to the Numerology Show, where we dive deep into the mystical world of numbers with the most respected minds in metaphysics and spirituality. Now, I'm your host, Hayden Crawford, and today I'm thrilled to welcome the brilliant Dr. Felicia Bender, also known as the Practical Numerologist. Now, Felicia is an author, a teacher, an intuitive, and a leading expert in Pythagorean numerology, which is obviously a subject very close to my heart. She has an extraordinary gift for helping people align with their purpose, decode their life path, and navigate the challenges through the power of numbers. So, with best-selling books like Redesign Your Life and Master Numbers 11, 22, and 33, Felicia has helped thousands live more intentionally and intuitively. Get ready for an enlightening conversation that bridges the practical and the mystical with insights that will change the way that you see yourself, your relationships, and your life path. So welcome, Felicia. So exciting to have you on today's show. I can't even express to you how brilliant this is. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I'm thrilled. I really am.
Oh, that's so sweet of you to say so. So, Felicia, then, can you explain what actually even drew you into numerology in the first place and how has it transformed your own life?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it, Hayden? I mean, how long do we have? And yet, and yet, because it's always an unfolding, right? And I think that the short answer to that is that numerology actually snuck up on me. It found me. I didn't find it. I don't know what your origin story is. I'll have to ask you, but I had started what I would say my little spiritual, or my not little one, big spiritual gauntlet when I was in my late 20s, early 30s, when my mom passed away. And it was, as many of us, those, listening, may identify with, when we have these eruptions in our lives, that's when we really dig in or open to our spiritual pathway, so to speak. And that is what it did for me. And I learned some energy modalities. I just dove head into everything psychic, intuitive, energy. I mean, everything in that realm. And it wasn't until later on, because I'm a built-in skeptic, actually. I've always been very intrigued, but I'm kind of like, well, show me, prove it to me, sort of thing. So I'm a little bit of a practical Polly in that way. And I was always looking for a modality that felt like it was my key, right? My conduit into helping and healing in a pragmatic way. And that is when I was walking through a bookstore and a book kind of jumped out at me. And it was a book that was not a numerology book. It was a book that contained some numerology, because guess what, Hayden? Math is my worst subject. I cannot tolerate math. I mean, it has been honestly, my worst subject from childhood, and my most anxiety producing. And it is a actual bittersweet irony and beautiful cosmic joke that I have been drawn to numerology. So, anyone out there who hates math, I am your shining beacon of possibility, because if I can do this, you can too. And really, because what I came to learn is that numerology isn't math at all. It is a language, right? And so I got that book. It was actually for my daughter, and I opened it up and I was reading it before I gave it to her. Don't tell her I did that though. And it was someone talking about their life path, the personal year. And it was like that moment, right? The goosebump moment, the ding, ding, ding moment, that moment where you're like, oh my gosh, you do yours, you do everyone you know, you do your exes, you do your parents, and it all just falls into place. And it was just this incredible aha. And I knew that it was my thing. I knew it was my tool. So I just went down the rabbit hole from then on, and you couldn't stop me. I just read everything. And I just find that it continues to fascinate me. I just can't get enough of how accurate and how amazing it is.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. It's amazing to hear that, how the book, just literally landed in your lap. And I hear that a lot, actually. That's one of the stories that seems to come up with a lot of numerologists, that they were in a bookstore, a book kind of almost jumped off the shelf. And in some cases, people even, sort of saw somebody reading a numerology book and bought it for them. So they knew that it was like something they had to look into. And so interesting that you said as well that that you're really rubbish at math. And, you actually speak to me there as well, because I wasn't the best mathematician at school. In fact, I always used to get anxiety as well, going through my maths exams and stuff, and didn't perform particularly well. But it really is, yeah, as you said, it's a language, isn't it? It's a language of light rather than it being something that is, sort of based around, any form of traditional mathematics. So thank you for clarifying that. And the other thing that you mentioned there is the fact that, that you wanted to use it as a practical tool. And it's like you found your tool. So what does practical numerology mean to you?
Well, to me, it actually means that and I am as woo-woo as anyone, okay? I'm just going to spoiler alert it right there. And yet, what I have found is that we can get off in the woo-wooville, and then it just doesn't help us in the here and now and in the day to day. And what I mean by that, and I'm not being disrespectful to the woo-woo and everything else, but what I am saying is that a lot of people who I counsel and work with, on the one hand, they're in this on this spiritual journey, for lack of a better term, really. And yet they also really want to know how to make their life better. Yeah, how can I be happier? How can I have more, how can I be more satisfied with my work, with my relationships, all of this. And it's one of those things where we did check in this human body on planet Earth, right here, right now, like it or not. And I feel like that is part of the process of coming to terms with that and then using that to the best of our ability, because I believe that's why we are in our human bodies now. It is to be a human for a moment. And yet the spiritual is such an integral part of it. But I feel as though numerology offers such tactical, strategic, practical information that has so much depth and breadth to it, that it can really offer these turning points, moments where, if you know you're a three life path, for instance, and it gives you this sudden permission to stop squelching your performative capabilities and all of those things, that it can offer you this incredible turnaround where you realize that your biggest issue is actually your purpose. you know? And it can be a total revelation and inspiration and game changer for people when they have that validation and they have that permission through the numbers because it resonates so, so deeply.
I love the way you've explained that. It's about giving you permission to just be you based around, the imprint that's in your birth date, So it's like, well, it once it's there in black and white, there's no hiding from it anymore. And because you've come from sort of quite a different background, being a doctor. I'm not sure, what sort of doctor. Are you like a regular GP, or what type of doctor did you train as? And how
No, I'm a PhD,
oh,
PhD doctor.
okay, so can you explain? So as you went through your PhD, obviously that's working on a very different part of the brain, I should imagine, and a lot more sort of traditional mainstream. Whereas numerology, sort of coming in as a juxtaposition to that, it must have created conflict not only within your own inner worlds, but also within the outer extremities. And when people saw you practicing numerology, how did they respond?
Well, it's really interesting, and I will well, I'll just say it. I won't do a disclaimer. It actually is in perfect alignment with my numerology. Because in numerology, I have a three life path, and I've always been into theater, into music, into writing, into all of those things. I've also had a lot of blockages in terms of the throat chakra and other things like that. For those of us who dive into the numerology, those are really powerful pieces of information and tools for us. But I also have a 22/4 birthday, which is a very pragmatic, very, the teacher energy, the one who could definitely do the endurance race that it takes to get the PhD and those sorts of things. So I have this really interesting juxtaposition that shows up within my numbers that actually, comes out in the choices that I've made in my life.
Wow, I love that. And it's interesting that your numbers carry numbers on all three planes of existence. You got your four physical, your two's emotional, and then your three, which is meant on the mental plane, the mind plane. So it kind of makes you a very well-rounded person. So I could imagine then in that case that people would have responded quite well. It was almost like it was just an organic unfoldment of your own personal development. Um, and did you find that you started incorporating, those worlds together in the work that you do now?
Absolutely. I mean, I feel as though in terms of my PhD, I mean, my PhD was in theater. And so I definitely have used a lot of that within, I think doing the PhD really truly helped me become a very good critical thinker. Someone who can gather information, do the research, and do all of that. It also, again, by virtue of being in theater, you and I work with people, right? We do videos, we do presentations, we do that sort of thing. So that very much piggybacked the direction I went with this work with numerology. I mean, it's interesting because a three life path usually is very multi, it can either be the rambling road that never leads anywhere, or it can be, oh, I've done this, I've done this. Usually threes to me have a very varied resume. Like their life reads kind of like a page turning novel in terms of what they've done. And certainly the choices that I've made in terms of my career and other things reflect that as well.
Mm. Oh, 100%. That's so absolutely in alignment with the three. Your life, just reeks of the number three. It's incredible. And also the 22, as your day number being the 22, the master builder, working for humane organizations and also, wanting to work towards the betterment of humanity and that big empathy and the guide energy that comes up with that. So the three, I get on with threes really well because I'm a nine. So my life path is a nine, and the mind numbers tend to connect like organically. It's just a natural clicking together. And I find that beautiful light-heartedness, that joviality, that sociability of the trees just uplifts me. For me, the number three aligns with the color coral and the planet Jupiter, and it's where love and power sort of blend together for the purpose of expansion, and it's a joyous number to be. So really helps me to understand you. Now, if someone is skeptical about numerology, how would you approach that? Would you try and um, how would you help them understand its value?
Well, it's always it's as I have gained wisdom and maturity, I will say, Hayden, that if someone isn't interested, I'm not here to proselytize or to recruit anyone. Because I know very, very well that people come to this information when it is time for them to come to the information. And I mean, when I was younger, I did not know this, right? And I would attempt to just, at any time, at any place, just start talking about it. Now I'm a bit more, have a bit more refinement around that. And yet what I find interesting, and I'll ask you, does this happen to you as well? Because someone will say, well, what do? You're meeting someone. And I'll say, I'm a numerologist. And you know immediately if someone, first of all, I will say, and I'm not joking, that oftentimes, like 3 out of 5 times, someone will think I'm saying I'm a neurologist. I'm a brain doctor. And then they'll start talking about Uncle Jack, who had a brain tumor or something. And I'm like, no, 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 not that, not numerologist, right? So, but not kidding that I get that a lot. But second of all, you understand it, either the person is just looking at you blankly and then asks you how, what do you think about the football team, right? And they just go somewhere totally else, or they just don't even register, they just ignore what you've said, or they say, wow, what is that? I think I've heard of it, but I don't, and they have an opening. Or someone says, oh, my life path is a 7, I know, blah, blah, blah. Then you can begin to have a conversation. But if somebody is in a group, I find, and there's a couple of yeses, and then, the one naysayer, the one, that one. I find that the best way to win them over, so to speak, is simply to ask them their life path, their birthday, the easiest thing, because you're not going to do the whole name, and well, you're standing right in front of them. Life path and personal year. And you can give them a 2-minute reading and it'll usually blow their head off. And they're like, uh, oh, well, how did you know? I mean, how did you know that? And so those are the ways that you can kind of break the ice, and then you don't just pummel them with it. You just give them a little appetizer. And then if they want to, and then if they want to pursue it later, not with me per se, but if they want to Google it, if they want to just go find out more, then you've primed that pump for them to go do that.
Yeah, that's really well explained. I find that I tend to avoid telling people if they ask me. Well, not that anybody does tend to ask me what I do, because I get asked very little questions about me. It's always about them. But if the very rare opportunity that somebody does ask me about me, I won't tell them I'm a numerologist, and I actually won't even tell them that I'm a color therapist as well, because that even gets more confusing.
Oh,
Can you
that's
imagine? It's like color therapy.
very
What's that?
dicey. Yes.
Yeah, you're what do you design colors for people's clothes and their hair? And it's like, no, not really. You
No,
know,
no. So
but
what do you say?
what do I
So,
say? I kind of go down the wellness coach. route,
Mhm.
just to sort of make it a little bit more generic, and then they sort of understand, and that's with people that are me on a physical level. When I'm online, hey, I'm a soul guide, numerologist, color therapist, and I'm very out of the closet. Um,
Yes.
but I think that those people that you mentioned as well, the curious ones are the ones that I absolutely love, and they're the ones as well, and even the skeptics actually, you can convert, as you said, quite easily with giving them the main influence within their numerology, like their ruling number or their life path number and their personal year. And for me, what I do is to prove the theories, I go on to, I have a TikTok channel and I do lives on there. And each time I get a group of people coming in, might have up to 50 or 100 people watching. And I just pick people out at random and do their numerology. And I don't even get to see their faces or their expressions. And all you get in the stream is, wow, wow, oh my God, you're so accurate, you're so accurate. And then so it almost gives you such faith in numerology because you're never wrong. The information is so totally reliable. It's not like using your intuition, is it? Where you can sometimes get things a little bit wrong, if you're doing a card reading or, you're tapping into your clairvoyance. No, when you've got it there in black and white, it always tells the truth. And just to add one last thing onto that, you mentioned those skeptical people. I often find that they're the ones that lack the 3, 5, and 7 in their birthday. They've got the arrow of the Inquirer, haven't they?
Yes, yes, yes. And it's fascinating because I will say this all the time as well, just to your point that it is never wrong. And what's interesting also is that and yet you also have to know all the numbers and how they engage because like for instance, you can have someone who's a 5 life path and then you talk about the 5 and they're like, well, that doesn't make any sense for me at all. I've been married since I've been 20. I've got 3 kids. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I'm a blah, 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 blah. And I don't drink. None of that stuff. And then you find out that the other numbers are a double 2 and a 6 and that the life path is a 5. And then you find out that she and her family, that she's the one who always insists that they do, very exotic vacations, and that she's learning a new language, that she does, all of these things that very much fit with the 5, but the double 2 and the 6 take over in terms of what you would see on the surface, if you know what I mean. So
100%.
yeah, it's very, very interesting to me. And I also would ask you in your practice, do you feel like the 3, 6, and 9 are the creatives and they all really group together? And when it's intensely in someone's chart. Do you find that?
Yeah, I really do. Yeah, I do. The mind numbers, being, as I said, being a 9 myself, like I just naturally connect with the other mind numbers. But I
Yeah.
also I tend to attract 11s, 29 11s, 38 11s. They're the ones that mainly come to me, or sevens. But
Okay.
my preference is with the threes, the sixes, and the nines. However, I married an 8, so that's where it all gets a bit confusing. But then I like being controlled.
I start to say there's a certain synergy there that can be. And what is your day of birth, may I ask?
Well, it's interesting because I was having a really good chat with this yesterday with Anne Perry, because the number 16 comes up for her before she reduces her life path down to the 7. So I was born on the 16th of October, and so is my husband. So he was born in 71. I was born in 1972. So it brought up all of that, betrayal, affair, all of that sort of hidden tower energy stuff. And of course, those karmic numbers, they show up
Mm.
and they also carry a narrative, don't they, within someone's birth chart.
Absolutely, absolutely. And do you feel with you and your husband that you're very much, you have a lot of very rich karma there where you're here to heal that for each other and with each other?
Oh, I'm so glad that you said that, Felicia, because it was interesting. Because, whenever we expose the negative attributes of the karmic numbers, it makes you sit and go, "Oh my God, what if I've got to go through that?" But 100%, I feel my husband and I have come together. We've been together for 25 years, so I know him enough by now that we're not going to betray each other. I'm not going to have an affair. I know he's not going to have an affair. We just won't do it to each other. So I feel like we have come in to resolve all of that old whore energy, as Anne Perry puts it. She goes, "Oh, you were a whore as well, were you, in your parallel life?" And I was like, "Well, no, I was in a war, not a whore."
Could have been both, though. Could have been both,
I know.
right?
I was trying to remember actually in my shower this morning whether I was a whore and in a war, but I couldn't get the whore stuff apart from, maybe it coming out in some dreams that I have. Too much
So
information.
interesting. Very interesting because I love the karmic debt numbers. I wish Pythagoras or whoever did the names of them would have had a better marketing director, right? Because that, I mean, we could have called it something else. The sparkles and unicorns of your karma. I don't know, but it's bet because as someone who counsels people, and I'm sure you get to do this, you have to really present it in a way that it is meant to be presented. And I'm always like, hey, we're all here for karma. These just really point to something specific, and it's kind of like your karmic gift to me, and it points to your karmic opportunity because with those karmic debt numbers you get to realize where you had the trouble before, right? Right. And then you get to understand, where the compass goes. Like for instance, I find, let's say for instance a 19 is a karmic debt number, a 19/1. I'll just use that as an example. So I feel like that, and the karma there has to do with an abuse of power in a past life, right? And so how does that show up? And again, in a very practical way, when you're walking and talking people through this, it can really release an incredible amount of I don't know of I don't negative feelings about life or about themselves, but also shine a light on what the karmic debt is giving them. And for 19 ones, I feel as though they're here to obviously be the one, be the leader, be that entrepreneurial spirit, the creative pioneering, person, but they're meant to be doing it, pointing that energy into something of humanitarian value, which is the 9, right? And the 19, because there was selfishness in the humanitarian element. So when that person does that, they are flourishing and they are shining. Now, when they're not, that's when they're struggling. And when they can see that, and they can also see how sometimes a 19/1, in my opinion, has this tape that goes on. It's very unconscious or subconscious, where they'll sabotage themselves and not step up into those leadership positions because there's like this past life memory that they don't know is that is like, oh, don't do that. You know what happened last time? And a lot of times people, when they can see that, they can feel it, right? And then it can open the door for them to step through that door and go, I'm going to give myself permission to take those leadership roles and do that now that I know what I'm balancing here. So I just find that the information is incredibly exciting for people if they can get past the karmic debt, the negativity that is implied in the name, right?
That's right. A lot of the people that I've been speaking with have said, "Oh, well, they changed that to the karmic lesson number because it sounds less daunting." And I'm going to adapt that, I think, because it is, it's like the whole debt thing. It's a bit like yesteryear, isn't it? It's a bit passé.
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah.
that What I loved what you just said there about the number 19 is that there is this very, and you've helped me understand the 19 a lot better as well, because in the color mirror system that I work with, bottle number 19 is this beautiful gold over magenta bottle, and it's called Buddhic Bliss. But it actually, goes right, it's like a resurrection bottle, and it can also mirror past lives as being a Roman soldier, during the time of Jesus Christ. So it's where that whole abuse of power stuff went in. So the 19s, a lot of them, as you said, they step away, don't they, from leadership roles because they realize that they've abused power in the past. And of course, it is about a resurrection into, because the tens rather could be very, very adaptable people. So to give them that focus of the nine energy within the 19 as being having their own holistic business, for example, or being a pioneer or an entrepreneur within those realms, it gives them a clear roadmap that's going to bring ultimate fulfillment and a rebalancing of the karmic lesson, which is amazing.
Precisely. Yeah, and I love that. And it can also explain, you know what else I find in the 19s is that they always invariably attract people who abuse them and control through control. And of course, there are levels of this, right? That it can be very, very severe, or it can be emotional abuse, call in the narcissistic personalities as partners, as romantic partners, or they have a parent who's very abusive and controlling, or something else of that nature. And oftentimes they're pulling these people into their lives to again balance this karma. And it's a beautiful validation for someone who is someone will say something like, well, yeah, those were my last five relationships, but I found my person now. And it's like, well, isn't this use jazz hands? You can celebrate that you've done it, right? You've balanced this karmic element now. And I think that's also a very victorious and freeing thing for people to hear through the numbers, and mostly, to hear it, but to feel it, to feel that within them, that they're like, yeah, now that has a reason. Now I can see that I wasn't just making stupid decisions. I was really doing something very important here, to balance this karma.
Brilliant. Yeah. So it was happening for them ultimately and not to them. So it takes away that whole victimhood, and it helps them to see progression, I guess, within their own life as well, which is fantastic. It's a brilliant way of explaining the karmic lesson numbers. Now, there are other karmic numbers as well. So in previous shows that we've done, we've really explored like the number 14 and obviously the number 16, because it really connects up with me and my birthday and my husband's. But we haven't really touched upon the number 13. That's the other karmic number, isn't it? So, what can you tell
Yes.
us about the 13? Because a lot of people, don't they? Their buttocks clench whenever they see the number 13 because they think, oh my God, it's unlucky. But it doesn't really mean that, does it? What does it mean, though?
No, no. And the way that I like to describe it to people is that, the karmic debt number, it doesn't mean you're bad. It doesn't mean you're being punished. It doesn't mean you're going to live a crappy life. It just means that this is going to come up for you. And if it resonates for you, that you could really, really understand the way that what you've signed in for, right, for this time. So to me, the four is the foundational energy, of course. And then we would talk about that. The four being, the number of stability, of security, that teaching number, the architect number, the tried and true, honest, trustworthy, reliable, hardworking, systematic. You even have to start talking like that when you talk about the four, right? It's just like, bum 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 bum, the plodding along of it, right?
It's like a
And
building block, isn't it? It's like a square. It's like
yep, I always will say, you even if you look at the number four, you turn it upside down, it looks like a chair, or if you take that one part of it off, it's a box, right? And to call in that it is the number of limitation, it is the number of health, not bad health, but of health maintenance and looking at that, because anyone with a four is going to have burnout if they don't take care of their physical bodies. And a lot of fours are athletes, are wellness coaches, or that sort of thing. They'll direct that energy there. But then what we'll look at in terms of the karma is this: the 1 in 13 is the common denominator for all of the karmic debt numbers, and it indicates selfishness, a heightened level of selfishness in a past life, in my opinion. And then in what way, in what category? How was it enacted? And then you look at the number right next to it, which is the three. And what is the three? It's creative self-expression, emotional sensitivity. It's the number of joy and optimism and motivation, inspiration. And so then what I'll attempt to describe is that this number really indicates that in a past life, this person was kind of lazy, a little irresponsible, didn't take their personal responsibility. The image that always comes to me that I like to describe, it's kind of like that 38-year-old guy who's living in his parents' basement. He's unemployed and he's playing video games and smoking pot, and he's really pissed at his parents because they don't have his favorite food in their refrigerator, right? Like that kind of person.
That's like my dream life.
Right, exactly, exactly. In a past life. And then on top of that, in that past life, this person again, let other people take care of them. And on top of that, they expressed negatively. They cut people down with words. They sarcasm, gossip, all of these negative forms of expression on top of that. So now what this person's being asked to do is, to me, is to be this hard working person and yet enjoy it. Whistle while you work, weave in those elements of the number three. And what I also see is a very viable thing for the 13-4 is that you often find them in entertainment or in the media, where they're right, they take that hardworking, do it, get it done endurance factor, and then they turn that energy into something that is creative, communicative, and uplifting. You look at someone like Benedict Cumberbatch, he's a 13-4, you know. I don't know anyone who's more of a hardworking guy than he is, and he's impeccable, isn't he? With his
100%.
technique.
I've never put that connection together with the 13s working in media, but I know two Libran, day number 13s, born on the 13th of October, two of my oldest friends, and both of them work in the media. So, yeah, so it's like the pennies just dropped there. So, thank you for bringing that clarity in there. That's really helped me understand the 13 in so much more detail. You're very good at this.
Oh, well, I mean, and you as well. I mean, the numbers just cry for that kind of, I mean, they're so deep and rich, isn't it? The information
Oh, it's
that's
so deep. And the more you explore, the more information you get as well. So you never stop learning, I don't think, with numerology. And, I mean, everyone focuses on astrology, and I think astrology is amazing as well. Don't get me wrong. But, if I compare the two, I'm still more fascinated by numerology. And it's easier. It's just easier, you know.
one of the things I will often say, though, Hayden, is once you know both your astrology and your numerology, you're out of excuses, at that point.
Yeah, you're snookered, totally stuck. You've just got to get it right then, don't you? So do you feel then that really understanding your own birth chart and your name chart has helped you go into alignment within your own life? And has it brought you happiness?
Yes, I think that it has definitely brought me into alignment. One of the things that I find very interesting is this idea of happiness, yeah, because I feel as though um, happiness is less of something that I'm seeking than a sense of being purpose driven, right? And I also realize that I don't know, I don't know, I'll just say it. I don't know why I'm saying it, is why I'm doing this little disclaimer. But for instance, the three life path is in numerology known as the pleasant path, right? The lucky number, and there are always just these upbeat and all of that. And yet I have to say, Hayden, and I will ask your opinion as well. I don't know a three life path or someone with threes heavily in their chart on the planet who doesn't go through a lot of melancholy, a lot of depressive ups and downs, because the threes are the feelers and they're the expressors. And so part of the pathway for the three is to really be in the dregs of the darkness for a while, because that's where they find their material to turn it around and to express their poetry, their art, their whatever. It doesn't come from being comfortable and happy.
No, that's a really great point as well. All the threes I know need time away from the madding crowds so that they can allow their own creativity to blossom and go through, the melancholy and the dark, well, the dark night of the mind potentially. But then they birth the most amazing music and the books that they write. It's like, but it's part and parcel. So I can understand that the pursuit of happiness then for you, Felicia, isn't really high priority. It's more about purpose. And that's such a valid point because many people feel like the pursuit of happiness is going to bring them fulfillment. But actually, it has the adverse effect. What does bring a sense of fulfillment is by aligning with your purpose, right?
It really is to me, and it's this sense of gratification that comes, I don't even want to say joy, it's because there's that conversation about the difference between being in joy and being, and having happiness or whatever. And yet I find for me what I love is to feel it's almost sometimes there's that pleasure in the pain. Because when you're feeling purposeful, if you're going through something challenging or difficult, that there is gold there. I mean that this is an open opportunity for such growth, for such opening, for such breakthroughs, for those feelings. And so it's almost like going to the gym or working out or something. You become where you crave a certain level of discomfort, because only then will you don't want to be so sore that you can't you can't move, right? Like you don't that's not good when you work out and you're in pain and you cannot move. That to me, that's not good. But if you're working out and you have just a slight bit of soreness, you know that your body is getting stronger, you know that your mental capacity is getting stronger, you know that your capacity as a spiritual being and as a human being is gaining capacity as you go. So there's something kind of glorious in being able to navigate that even when you are feeling pain, there's a kind of underlying joy about that in many ways.
I love that. 100%. We all, people, as a collective, we tend to run from things that are uncomfortable, don't we? Because it's like, oh, I don't want to be doing this anymore. Just bring me the joy back. And actually, when we sit in that and we just process it and we look beyond it and look for the lessons, we suddenly, it could be a very simple thing that maybe has just got you out of alignment for a little while. And usually that thing is where you're not being of service, isn't it? Where you've started becoming a little bit sort of selfish, or you've just focused on the accumulation of stuff as opposed to actually helping people. And when you realize that, the pain is just there as an indicator, like the car petrol light coming on, it's like, aha, you then, learn the lessons and the darkest lessons, the hardest lessons create the most growth. So it's like the way the diamond is formulated. So, again, with numerology, how would you say that, somebody can understand when they are, sort of living in the negative attributes within either their day number or their life path or their soul edge or outer expression?
Well, I think the easiest way is, when you're walking and talking someone through, is I always attempt to present it as, okay, well, we're going to talk first about what it's all the theme, the thematics, right? What the key words are that we can keep coming back to with a number. And we're going to talk about what it's all about optimally, right? What is the optimal expression of this? And then to really emphasize, and if this is your life path, these are going to be the key elements. You are going to have the oppositional pull. And it's not just going to be today, it's not just going to be yesterday, it is going to be lifelong. You're never going to arrive, right? Because as soon as you master something, and I do feel like we get to certain master levels of mastery, we're still that the our spirit guides, our higher self, our however you describe it, they're still going to be throwing down some bigger, higher level challenges for you because it's like, oh wow, you're past level 3 now. Let's get you going. Let's get you into the platinum program or whatever it is. Because I think it's really good for people to understand that this is not something that they're conquering. This is not something they're arriving at and achieving. This is actually the point of their life this time. This is not something that you're checking off the list and you're failing at, right? This is something that these are the consistent themes and you are going to be at a different level of mastery of different elements of it at different times of your life. And how exciting is that,
Yeah.
right? That you have all of this to work with and that you can really pinpoint what you keep coming back to, right? What you keep coming back to. I mean, I know for instance, with myself as a 3 and all the threes I know, when we're feeling the crappiest is when we need to step back and go, oh, wait a minute. How long has it been since I've first of all had fun doing something? And second of all, since I have created something or allowed myself to use my creativity in a different way. And as soon as a 3 can do that, that's when that starts to flow. So numerology to me is a huge key for that. Because if someone didn't know the numerology and know that they're all about the communication, the expression, all of the other things that you would tell them, Hayden, about their life path, and to say, when you're feeling off, you are off. Go back here. It's not, it's supposed to feel bad when you're off. You got to get back on track. And so it really does. I feel that is the one of the many powers of numerology to just keep you to coming back to those things that truly are what you are here to learn and to master and to evolve into and with, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it really does. Enjoy, it's about enjoying the journey, not, focusing on the end destination. But also, for me as a 9, I notice that I go through that when I'm not focusing on being of service. Like literally, as soon as I stop, when my focus is actually genuinely wanting to help someone, and I sort of focus more around the accumulation of money or whatever it is, everything gets blocked for me. Literally, like technology will stop. I'll get blocked from platforms and, it'll just be like, stop, 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 and I'm like, "Urgh." And then the 9 Mars fire, "Urgh," comes up. And then I'm like, okay, Hayden, sit with this, sit with this, sit with this. Oh my God, you've gone out of your heart, you wally. Back to being of service again and be nice, stop being a little Lord Fauntleroy. And then, of course, everything kind of runs smoothly. Now, you specialize, don't you, with master numbers? And, so it was interesting what you were saying there because I think that do master numbers in that case. If you've incarnated as a master number 11, a 22, and we'll talk about the 33 sort of, because a lot of people don't believe that, we can be a 33. But anyway, so we'll include it for the purpose of the argument. If people have been chosen to incarnate as a master number, does that mean they're on the platinum program?
No. And I mean, I don't know. I don't, what I'm going to say, that's my opinion. And so that is just my opinion, and anyone can have any other opinion they would like to. It's kind of Hayden. I don't know if people ask you, they're like, well, is it like, do you start as a one life path and then you end as a nine, and that's like, and then you don't have to incarnate anymore? I mean, I don't think it's that easy, if you know what I mean, in terms of how we're looking at all of that. But I truly don't believe that master numbers are and I'm trying to say this as diplomatically as I can. Master numbers, it's a butt kicker. And a lot of people really are like, oh, I want to be a master number, I'm going to be super special. And you're like, oh my gosh, that is the first lesson of the master number is humility, right? Is, higher levels of spiritual, lessons, and that it ain't easy. And a lot of people who have what we get regular numbers can be far more successful in life than master numbers, because master numbers have a tendency to get in their own way because they're working with a lot of very intense energies, a lot of very intense experiences. I mean, you're talking about you work with a lot of 11s. I work with a lot of 11s. And I mean, do you find that they've got near-death experiences? They have huge accidents. They have ongoing health issues. And I'm not saying, if you're an 11 out there, please don't take this as what's going to happen to you. That's not my point at all. I'm just saying, I mean, you can have 11s who don't have any of that, and they're doing their thing. But I do find that a lot of 11s just, I mean, it's intense. And so to your point, I kind of strayed off of your question, which is, do I think that people with master numbers have mastered other things? I don't think so. I think that we all come in to experience, our higher self is here to experience as much as we possibly can. And so that was like, I always think about it as I'm kind of a little bit irreverent this way. Of we're on the other side and we're there with our counsel and we're at a bar and we're at a happy hour and we've had 3 martinis, and that is when we sign this contract. You know? And then we
Yeah.
get down here, we're like, what? Oh my gosh, I don't remember signing that contract, or I don't remember, all of those things. I say it jokingly, but not jokingly, because the master numbers have a tendency to struggle, to really struggle in
Mm.
life.
They
A
really
lot of
do.
times.
They really, really do. And I wouldn't want to be one. So, if you're a master number, don't take this the wrong way. But I'm quite happy being a nine, and I'll buy into that theory that, we go from one to nine, then we don't have to come back. So I'm happy with that. I'll buy into that.
But I
But
would say, Hayden, that in some ways, the nine has its own, it is its own master number. I would say that because it is a very, very sacred number. And for you with the seven and the nine, it's interesting when people show up with that because it's obviously quite a spiritual lifetime that you are engaged with. But the seven and the nine are on such different vibes with that spirituality, right? So you have the heady intellectual divorced from all emotion of the seven, but then you have the cacophony and the tsunami of the creativity and the other and all of that with the nine. Don't you find as a nine that you have a very thin veil between you and your past life skills and talents?
Oh, completely. And as I'm getting older as well, it's getting thinner and thinner. So I'm now like remembering all the stuff that I used to do in Atlantis, with, working with a very similar sort of color therapy system and crystal grids and all of that. But all of it, really, all of the parallel lives are very accessible to me now. And of course, the more you trust, the more information that you get. So I love that. And actually I do feel like there is a disassociation between the seven and the nine energy as well. Because if you think of seven as being Neptune, which is turquoise in color therapy, and Mars nine being red, the turquoise and red, when you put those two colors together, it's a bit like, ooh, like my own mother had like her interior in a house as turquoise and red. And I told her to change it because it was creating this feeling of being isolated and disillusionment. And of course, I feel like that is something that I have to become aware of, this playoff between fire and water within my own elemental influences. And it is, it's quite a, you can definitely come back on the show again by saying that it's the nine is the master number in its own right, because I do feel sometimes like I am treading the path of the master, and
I
all
believe
that
that.
that
Yes.
hermit stuff as well, which has got getting worse. I'm very introspective, but
It's
in
getting
human.
worse or it's getting better. It depends on how you look at it.
Well, I love it. Don't get me wrong, but it's almost like, yes, that I will reframe what I've just said. It is getting better. I'm getting more and more comfortable with just being in my own environment, my own space, but I don't want to lose contact with reality completely. So I think that's why I framed it in that sense, because it is like I still do enjoy I love human engagement in human design. I'm a 4/6 path. Are you as well?
I
There you
think
go.
so.
Ah,
Yes. Isn't that funny?
so it's the
Force.
networker
I'm going to look it
teacher.
up again, but I do believe that is what I am. So
Manifesting generator with sacral response. And so I've got to trust my gut with things. So I actually find when you combine human design and numerology together, it creates incredible information, not only about your current incarnation, but also your past incarnations. And one of the most interesting things is like if you really start using AI as a tool to be able to generate information about all of that, it will very cleverly combine information that you can then really start delving very, very deeply into what's going on. And it kind of confirms your intuitive responses to things.
yeah.
Do you feel
Well,
that?
I do feel that. And talk to me a little bit about, because in looking at who you are and what you do with the Starseed and material. So in what way does that show up for you in as information in a numerology chart? Do you
Oh,
mind talking
no,
about
not
that
at all.
for
That's a really good question, actually. And it's interesting because I have to look at not only the numerology, but I also combine astrology with that too. So really, I use ancient Hopi techniques that map the soul's journey through the stars and constellations and galaxies to the Earth through the portals. So it's actually based around the position of your sun in your astrological natal chart at the time you're born and where that's conjunct or opposite, to which constellation. So, for example, my sun is 23 degrees in Libra when it was conjunct the Andromeda constellation, not the galaxy. But then I also look at my numerological influences. The nine energy, you know, often relates to the ninth dimension. And of course, Andromeda is on it's a ninth dimensional frequency. So it kind of all aligns, but not all nines are Andromedan. So we have to sort of look at all of it together holistically. A lot of ruling fives are Andromedan, I've found as well, because the five is the freedom seeker and the Andromedan starseeds are the nomads of the universe, you see. So I have to kind of extract information from color, numbers, and astrological influences to get it really, really accurate. So, but people are ancient, immortal beings of light, and we live out temporary human experiences. So we exist simultaneously across numerous different galaxies and constellations. But as a human, we like to identify, don't we, with one thing in
Yes.
particular. So for me, my Andromedan element is the biggest influence within this incarnation because I'm working more on those themes. But I also am aware that, I also exist in the Pleiades. I'm a Syrian Pleiadian hybrid and possibly an ancient Lyran as well. So, it's an untapped territory in a lot of senses. And I think that I'm still learning and evolving. But, I think we have to look at it holistically to get it super accurate. Did that answer
Yep.
your question?
It did. I love that. I love the way that you're able to weave that together. It's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad that you're fascinated with it because, a lot of threes like you as well. I often find that there is this almost like an aesthetic with the threes, and that's very Pleiadian. So for you, the sixes and the threes, there is this gorgeous sort of like I see the Pleiadians in their soul, on their actual sort of culture, as being
Mhm.
these very beautiful, tall, blonde, Nordic, blue-eyed. But doesn't mean to say that you're going to incarnate as a starseed in that form. A lot of Pleiadian starseeds, are of all different ethnic cultures and stuff. So there is no we're not being racist here when we say
No,
this.
it's no one size fits all either. Right.
Exactly, but I do find that a lot of the beautiful blonde ladies and these slim with the long faces have this very strong, and especially if they're a ruling number three as well, or a life path three, and they've got that three aspect, and also if they've got either a two or a seven alongside of that, because the two energy is the moon blue and the seven is turquoise. So when you get the very sensitive coral and turquoise, they're actually complementary colors, and
Yeah.
that is a deep sensitivity, which is very connected with the heart space and the Pleiadian energy. Yeah,
Yep. Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So we want to know more about you and also, but because you are, so highly intuitive, how, like, if you were doing a chart for somebody, is there a fixed process that you look at in creating those charts for people? And, are there any aspects of Pythagorean numerology that you deliberately avoid including in the report? And if so, for what purpose?
Um, Oh gosh, that's a rich question. There is a certain structure that I have, having the 22/4. I do thrive with structure, but I also with my three, I do have a six expression or destiny, so I have that aspect, and I have a two or 11 two, depending on how you calculate it. I'm also one of those numerologists who also will point to different schools of thought, right? Because you kind of have to, I think, or I think it's beneficial to go, yep, some numerologists calculate it this way, some this way, and so you get to choose, as someone how it feel what feels right to you, right? But to speak to your point about structuring something, I'll always structure like a reading, and I'm just weird this way, I guess. I like to look at the cycles of time first, like the personal year, the pinnacles, and really get a framework around the playing field that you're in or the environment you find yourself in during this time. I think people can really begin to get a good idea about deriving meaning from the crappy family they showed up in, or the bad divorce, or the this or the that. You know what I'm saying? It's like sometimes it helps to lay that groundwork and go, gosh, in this Pinnacle cycle, you were, this was usually what was going on. And to get really a lot of validation around that kind of sets the stage for people. And then I'll go in and look at the core numbers, right? And put those into hierarchy again, kind of like thin slice them, but to see, okay, if I look at your chart like a pie chart, it's what you see is what you get, right? It's all very, very cohesive, blah, blah, blah. It has a lot of different facets. Or you can go, and how does that work for you? Because there's a lot going on there that is very tenacious with, that there are, just a lot of incongruencies. And then people will feel that they're like, oh my God, I want to be this, but I'm that. And then I don't understand when this happens and that. So it can really draw that together for people that makes a lot of sense in terms of their validation. But there are aspects of with numerology, like I won't really look at the psychomatrix for someone. I just think it's a lot and it's too, sometimes, not even sometimes, oftentimes less is more because you start working with someone and if you are getting the new the thin slicing of the thin slice of the nuance, it gets very diluted, right? And I think most people can't, if you're working with someone consistently for a couple years, like every several months or something, then they can really begin to dig deeper into things. But until then, I think it's kind to give digestible bites of what people can digest and can what they can really work with. And I think it's up to us as practitioners to also be intuitive enough and present enough to know what that threshold might be, right?
Hmm.
And um and to, and not to give someone just too much information where they feel, assaulted by it.
Oh, do you know what, Felicia? You're speaking words of wisdom there because I feel like probably one of the worst reports I ever got was about 50 pages long. And I got past page two and I was like, oh, it's like, I just don't understand this. So I think,
Yeah.
yeah, less is more. And with the reports that I do, the Starseed numerology reports, they're 22 pages, and the first few pages are just explaining the meanings of some of the terms I'm using. So it's enough information to give people the breakthrough that they're looking for and to help wake them up, to the truth of numerology. And I think that is kind of like a brilliant way to look at it. And you mentioned something interesting there because you mentioned the word pinnacles, right? And I often, when you said that, I'm like, oh, does she mean the peak years of maturity? Because you said that you like starting off with the personal year, the
Yeah.
influence of the universal year, and then the pinnacles. So they're the peak years of maturity, right?
To me, the pinnacles are those four periods of time, yes, that we all have, and the timing depends on your life path number, in terms of how the math comes out.
That's right.
But
So you
yes,
reduce your ruling number from magical number 36.
yes, exactly,
Oh,
exactly.
wonderful. So could you explain that? Because we've not touched upon this yet with any of the conversations that I've had on the numerology show so far. And I absolutely love the pinnacles. Like I'm big
I
into it.
love them. I
Oh,
love them. I just absolutely adore them. So, okay, here is what I'm going to ask you.
okay.
Why the number 36? Why is it taken from the number 36? I honestly don't know the answer to that.
Well,
Can you tell me?
I sort of know a little bit, but I don't probably know the whole thing. Well, if you think of like the 36 is a magical number because it's six times six. Six sixes times 36. So creation times creation is
Right.
36. So it's the
Okay.
gateway energy. And it was actually used as part of the mathematical calculations in the architecture of the pyramids as well, the actual
Okay. That's
pyramid.
what I was thinking, and I just haven't done, I mean, and it's a nine, right? I
And it's a
mean,
nine. And it's a nine, yeah. So the
mhm.
369 stuff, that is the key. It's the universal God code. If you look at Nikola Tesla, oh my God, when you start exploring that, you realize that we're actually just in a simulation and, it's just a big computer program. So you're right when you're talking about platinum programs and leveling
Yeah,
up. It's just a computer game.
exactly.
All of this,
Yeah.
really. I just wish I'd chosen a better avatar. I would have had a much taller, more handsome, more muscular, you know, probably a bit better hung as well, I'd have chosen, I'd
Think
have
you've
chosen all
done
those things.
just perfectly fine. And I would dare say that your husband would disagree with you. Okay. He's like, I want him just the way he is.
Sorry, I couldn't resist that. It's it was just perfectly set up for a good comedy basic gag, wasn't it?
I love
But
it. A little spit take. If I would have had some water in my mouth, we could have done. Yeah.
exactly, make a good YouTube short.
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh God.
Uh, but the pinnacles to me, I find that they really lay out your roadmap. They just lay out the GPS of your life, the points of destination that you are moving, that you're in and you're moving toward, and and it's fascinating to look at the pinnacles in terms of, I always look to see if the pinnacle number is shows up as one of your core numbers, because if it does, it really draws forward that element and aspect of your development and your character and everything to the front of the line during that time. So, if you have a 9 life path, and your birthday is a 7, and you have a 7 as your first pinnacle, you're really, really keying into this to the elements of the 7 development during that time. And the way I see it is that is the what needs to be foundational for you to keep you honest, right? Or to keep you on path in a cohesive way.
What were your first pyramids then? Because I'm assuming that you would now be being a three, you'll be in your fourth pinnacle. Yeah.
Yes.
So what's
Oh,
the influence around you, for the remainder of your life? What is that number for you?
oh, ugh.
What is it?
It's an 8.
Oh God, they were the first two for me. I was in an eight for the first
Oh,
two.
oh,
Oh,
I'm sorry.
it was
So,
awful.
I apologize for the
It was
universe,
awful.
but an 8 shows up nowhere else in my chart. So it's nowhere else other than, of course, we all experience all of the numbers through the personal years, right? So we do. So to me, the 8 is a wild card for me in terms of that. And that's also very interesting to look at people's charts, and to see again where it shows up in their numbers, so it's something they're familiar with at least. Because if you show up the way I like to describe it, because I am this way, I'm kind of that visual person, and I describe it as it. So let's see what happens though when you show up in a pinnacle that does not show up as one of your core numbers. It's something else. It's kind of like you show up in a foreign country. So it's not necessarily that it's bad. It could be awesome, but you always feel a little like you're a visitor, you always just feel a little off, a little wonky, maybe like you're learning the language, it's not it's you even if you're fluent in that language that you're in the other country, it's not your original, it's not your first language. So it has this really interesting resonance to it that we can really begin to understand our where we landed, and how all of it came together, and what the experience was designed to be for us.
That's a brilliant way of looking at it. Yeah, because the eight doesn't appear in my chart anywhere either. So it was like being in a foreign language. That's when I worked in corporate for the first like 15 years of my life. And it was like so not who I am. But I did it. And of course I learned about independence and being more in control, etc. So do you find how's it playing itself out for you, the eight then? Because if it doesn't also appear in your chart, there is that uncomfortability, but how is it actually playing itself out? Are you being called to work more in a corporate capacity or?
No, I mean, what I find fascinating is I would ask you, so you had double, you would the first. Oh, okay. So you had double your first pinnacle and second pinnacle were 8s. All right. And you were in corporate and everything. So I would say that the 8 has a very strong influence in your chart, even though it doesn't show up as your core numbers. And isn't your husband an 8?
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
Oh, well, so again, this, even though it is not a part of your core numbers, I would also sidebar say that the nine contains all of the elements of all the other numbers, right? So you've got that to pick and choose from, right? And yet it has set you up, and what I would say is that that amount of eight was not only establishing you in terms of understanding business, power, and personal empowerment, all of the, getting respect and becoming authoritative in whatever it is you were wanting to do. And and your sexual preference has to do with that as well. You had to empower yourself in a very different way, right? Than maybe other people might have during that time. The big thing that I would say is that you also learned what you would do for money and what you wouldn't do for it. You learned the true power of the eight, which has to do with abundance, but on your own terms. And it had to do with that higher octave of the eight, which has to do with, again, understanding what that means to you, what you'll do for it, and when is enough enough in some way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so for you, it set the groundwork, and then you, right after that pinnacle, is that when you quit corporate?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was right after. Now I'm in my seven, which is this is when, all my work with Dreamtime Academy really stepped up with the spiritual teaching. So I'm in that
But
now and
see
I'm
what I,
loving
but
this
I,
phase.
I would also observe though that you, because of the double eights, you have been able to make your spiritual business a business.
Ah,
That you, right, that you aren't just, giving it away, you aren't just frolicking around, that you have been able to go, oh, okay, this needs to happen, this is how we're setting it up, these are the business practices, all of those things. And yet you're doing it with the most ethics, integrity, and all that goes with your nine, right,
yeah.
that is instilled with that. So to answer your question, I have it kind of, but on the flip side, I have gotten into my eight, and the first 10 years of my eight have kind of kicked my butt, I got to tell you, just in terms of all kinds of things. And I have also come to this place where I'm like, what does all this mean to me? What do I really want? What is my ideal in terms of success? What is success? What is abundance? What is my through line of action here as someone doing the work I do that I feel very passionate about. And yet there have been a lot of instances where I have really, really been working with the whole idea about I it's let me back up. I'm kind of rambling, but what I mean to say is that I don't have it in me at any point to just go and conquer for the sake of money, fame, fortune, whatever that is. That is just not in my eight grab bag at all. What I really have learned is the value of empowerment around myself. And then the other stuff is building upon it. And it ain't over till the fat lady sings, right? So we're not, I don't even know what's coming up, but I do know that now that I feel a certain level of what I will always say to an eight life path or someone with eights heavy in their chart is like, that you have achieved kind of, you've, you've arrived as an eight when you can truly tell yourself that you have nothing left to prove, not to yourself, not to anyone, not to the world, that you're no longer working from this place of having to prove yourself, because that is part of the eight. I demand respect. I have to have, this. I have to have that. You've got to, I have to have that kind of a feedback, right? And I find that the upper level of the eight is when you just are absolutely empowered and you don't have to talk about it. You don't have to insist on it. You don't have to do anything because it just is who you are,
Hmm.
you
That's
know?
beautiful. I absolutely love that. And those, if I look back to those first two peaks of the eight when I was in corporate, I was very much um having to prove myself all the time, hitting targets, proving myself. And
Oh,
then it led into that whole needing other people's approval stuff. And so, once the lessons had been learned, it was like, good, good, good. Move on. Thanks. See you later. Never want to see you again. But it was kind of, I think the lower level eight stuff that I was also learning back then. Now, would you be able to explain just quickly how those are calculated for people who are wanting to, sort of calculate their
oh.
own pyramids?
Do you want to use your birthday? Do you want to just use a fabricated birthday? What do you want to use?
Yeah,
Give
let's
me a
use my
birthday.
birthday. Why not?
All
Okay.
right, give it
So
to me.
the 16th of October, 1972.
All right. So you take the month, which is 10. 1 plus 0 is 1. 16. 1 plus 6 is 7. 1972, hardest math will do, all right, is 10, 17, 18, 19. 19 is 10, 1 plus 0 is 1. So then we add all those together for the life path, right? But that's not what we're going to do right now. What we're going to do is a four-step process. So we're going to take the for the first pinnacle, we'll take the number 1 of the month and add it together with the day, which is a 7, and that is an 8. That means the first pinnacle is an 8. Then we're going to take the day, which is a 7, and add it with the year, and that's a 1 again. There's where that 8 comes from. The second pinnacle is also an 8. Now, this is a little tricky, but we're going to do it anyway. We're going to add the 8. We're not going to add, we're going to add the first pinnacle together with the second pinnacle. And that is a 8 plus 8 is 16. And 1 plus 6 is 7. Usually people won't denote a karmic debt number in a pinnacle, but if you want to, you can. I mean, and it can give you, again, a little bit deeper level of information. But in the usual way of doing something, you would not include the 16. You would just say it's a 7. And then for the final pinnacle, the fourth and final pinnacle, you will add together the year with the month, and that is a 2. All right. So first pinnacle 8, second pinnacle 8, third pinnacle 7, fourth pinnacle 2.
There you go.
And
So
that,
that's it. So thank you for explaining that. What I'll do is I'll put a graphic over the top of that just so people can understand how it's calculated and what it looks like. Um,
yeah.
But that's brilliant. So you can see it's actually quite straightforward. The calculations aren't mathematical. They're just, it's just once you've learned it and you know how to do it. So you can see
Yeah.
there that for me, I'm moving into a 2 as I reach my maturity. And that's actually my karmic lesson stuff as well, is the 2,
Yes.
which is about collaborations. It's about, working with people and all of that sort of stuff, isn't it? So it'll help me. I'll hopefully
Absolutely.
work on my karma stuff.
Yes, yes. And, with the 2, it's also about, you know, a lot of collaborations, right? Very collaborative work and about soul partnership and personal life, not all about, it's not, I would think it skews more toward being happy in your relationship life personally than it does overarchingly with business. You know what I mean? It's not
Yeah.
mutually exclusive.
No.
But but it becomes a priority, right? To spend less time at the office and more time with your loved ones.
Yeah, I'm feeling that 100%. I'm definitely feeling that. So I'm looking forward to it. But also, if somebody depends on that person's level of spiritual maturity, if they're living in they've not done the work, then it can be more of an emotional and sensitive period for them, can't it?
Oh, yes. Oh, indeed. It can be a time where people are called to become more sensitive. Maybe they've been very insensitive and unloving, and their heart has been closed in their lives. Or maybe they're the person who's been hypersensitive to the point of, I find the two is always begging us to please. Yes, emotions are good, but you must discipline them like a small child, right? You need to discipline those emotions. They cannot, they cannot take the front seat all the time. And so during any cycle that is guided by a two, or if you have a two in your chart, I think that that's one of the things that we're learning is how to be emotional, but also not be reactive and be able to gain a certain level of emotional maturity as we go along.
Yeah, absolutely. That's beautifully explained. Yeah, because for the number two, is a big influence for all of us because we're in the 2000s now and we're
Yes.
tapping more into our feminine, sensitive and intuitive and empathic gifts and abilities. So, as the evolution of humanity, it's a really good thing, isn't it? I think.
I hope so.
Let's hope so.
Please.
So,
Yes.
Felicia, tell me, where can people find you then? If they've enjoyed, your conversation today and what you've explored and what you've revealed about how you work and how you operate. Like, if people want to engage with you personally, do you do private consultations and things like that still? Or
Yes, I do. And everything is at my website, FeliciaBender.com. And I do privates. I run a certification course. So if you're interested in really exploring your own being a numerology nerd like Hayden and I, right? Um, so there are those offerings as well.
beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for that. I'll put all the links in the description below. So if you are watching and you'd like to contact Felicia, then just click the links below and she'll gladly take your booking. Now, is there one message from numerology you wish that everyone on a spiritual path could hear right now?
I feel like the one huge gift, well, there are many, many gifts. The one that's coming up for me right now is the biggest gift of numerology is that it can inform us that our pathway is our pathway, but it's ours, and somebody else's is theirs, and that we are all on a very different trajectory, and one is not right and one is not wrong, and one is not harder and one is not easier. And I think one of the biggest gifts of numerology is for people to begin to understand the people in their lives more significantly, and it can heal so much old crusty stuff when you can finally look at someone and go, oh, well, my dad's an eight. That's why he's so gruff. And that's why it was always kind of transactional. And that's why it wasn't what I needed as a two. But I can understand now where that disconnect came, and I can maybe have some forgiveness around that, or maybe I can just have some understanding at all around it. So I feel like one of the biggest gifts is that for us to have more compassion and more tolerance for ourselves and for everybody else, because we're all here doing our thing, and it
Hmm.
doesn't really, and it's not, it's like, especially when you have kids, you got to really, really come to that conclusion that they may be your children, but they're not yours. And right, and sometimes it helps people to relinquish responsibility around what they, the responsibility that they feel for other people. And it's like, well, it's not your responsibility, it's theirs. So it can be really magic, to have that click inside and to go, wow, I don't have to, ruminate on that anymore.
That's perfect. Thank you so much. That makes perfect sense. So thank you so much once again to the incredible Dr. Felicia Bender for joining us on the Numerology Show today. Her grounded, empowering approach to numerology reminds us that numbers aren't just digits, they're divine guidance systems designed to awaken our highest potential. So if you're inspired to dive deeper with Felicia, you click the link in the bio, check out her insightful blog posts, personal readings, and powerful numerology tools, courses, and classes. And don't forget that you can also subscribe to the Numerology Show for more in-depth interviews with the world's top numerologists, authors, and spiritual leaders. Until next time, stay curious, stay aligned, and keep trusting the numbers. Bye, Felicia.